What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are doing the breakdown for the NFL Week 13 now, and yeah, it should be a good one. I mean, fingers crossed that nothing really changes. We've got a nice week here. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be doing all of these videos for free, so please do keep watching and stay interactive. We want to hear from you guys. Sheets, not a great week last week, but ready to move on to this one. This looks like a pretty good slate.
Yeah, I like this slate actually. I've been very adamant about this last couple I've hated. So I do like this slate a little bit. Actually, I like it a decent amount. Now, with that said, now the entire. Usually, when I say that, I mean literally as soon as you stop recording, like my top 3 plays all get ruled out. So we'll see what happens.
Well, it won't happen today because usually it's Friday they rule them out, and we're recording on Thursday this time, so they're going to be ruled out tomorrow at least.
There is definitely quite a bit of, I don't say quite a bit. There's just a decent amount of injury news that's going to impact some of my decisions. And it's not like the usual types of guys. So we'll get into that. You want to do a game by game?
Yeah, let's go game by game. Why don't we pull up your screen and we will start talking about Cleveland and Tennessee, which I think is. I mean, look, there are a lot of games in this slate, by the way, that are good stackable games. So
yeah. So what's interesting to me, in general, is again, I did a really short video yesterday just because I needed a distraction, and I did it for golf. And what I was mentioning in the golf video is I really want to impress upon people how sports are similar with respect to DFS. You're always trying to do the same thing. You're trying to find guys that project well, but you want to, find guys that project at least close enough to the guys you project well that you're going to get a huge amount of discount in ownership on, Mm-hmm. So you really want to apply that to all these slates. And like for right off the bat, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, I'll go right into the Cleveland Tennessee game.
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, right off the bat, I mean, I can't imagine why. I guess I can imagine why. Why would we not want to play Derrick Henry again? At 10% ownership when Dalvin Cook's 30. You know what I mean? I don't understand why we wouldn't want to do that. To the point where the ownership thing doesn't even make sense to me. Like how many times can a guy freaking smash in people's face and still nobody play him? I don't quite get it. So that's my first comment is that, we'll get to Dalvin Cook. And yeah, he's a great play and all that stuff. But, if you don't play Derrick Henry this time, mm-hmm. and he smashes again at low ownership, that now you really have nothing to complain about. You really are not allowed to whine to anybody. That's the first comment. Second thing about this game is Cleveland's. For those of you that are surprised, okay, so it's interesting. So it's a 53-point total, and yet on the other hand, you have like 2 teams that just love to run the ball down your throat nowadays. You know what I mean? So it's kind of strange when you think about it, right? Because you have Cleveland who loves to run it down your throat now. You have Tennessee who loves to run it down your throat. And yet still, it's one of the highest totals, if not the highest total, on the board, So it's interesting. But the other thing you have to remember is that Cleveland, they've played basically 4 straight games, I think. Well, not the Jacksonville game, where they've had like rain and ugliness and all this stuff. So you don't really even know like what they're going to do. And it is a high total. And it's gonna, attract a lot of, I guess, attract a decent amount of attention. My place in this game, I wanted to ask you about Corey Davis from the Tennessee side. I thought he was okay. I also wanted to keep an eye on the Tennessee tight end situation because if what's his name isn't playing, the Ferkser again becomes a good cheap play. On the Cleveland side, I wasn't really gonna get to too much of this. It just scares me, this Chubb Hunt situation, because they're both really good, and I just feel as though whichever one I pick is going to be the wrong one. And I don't know. I haven't seen Mayfield in a while, but last week the winner of $1 million had him. So right. It's an interesting game. It's not my favorite, but I definitely be interested in some pieces. Rashad Higgins, I wanted to ask you about him. From the Cleveland side, if he's going to be popular, if he's going to do whatever. And that's pretty much where I'm at with this game.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much in avoidance of the quarterbacks in this game and most of the passing game here. I do like Henry a lot, especially at what should be low ownership. And I don't think it's that people don't want to play Derrick Henry. I just think that people are deciding when they look at Dalvin Cook, I think you either want to play those two guys, they want to play those two guys together, or they don't want to play them. They don't want to play Henry.
Okay.
So I think that's what's going to keep the ownership down on him. I think it's going to be higher than what most sites are projecting right now. But I don't think it's going to be like anything above, it certainly won't get above, I don't think 15% or so, unless we get some crazy value that hasn't opened up yet.
Right.
I think it's probably going to be 10 to 15% is my guess. I'll take another stab at Kareem Hunt just because the price is right. The ownership will be low. And I think Chubb is obviously the better back, the more likely back to explode. It could be a Kareem Hunt week. There's no reason why it couldn't be. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with being ahead of what should be really low ownership, but I don't want to go crazy with it. I have a bunch of guys in this game that I sort of have like I dean them up at 10%. I mean, that's sort of how I'm looking at it right now. I feel okay about Chubb, but I actually like other running backs better. So I'm probably not going to get crazy heavy there. And I think you're going to have Corey Davis as the most popular player in this game. And I'm okay with that. At 5.1K, I don't mind being which is only going to be about probably 10% or so. Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith are the only parts of the passing game that I have really that much interest in. And if you wanted to take a shot on a Landry or a Hooper or something like that on the other side, that would be fine. I worry about stacking this game too much just because I think the pace is going to be a little bit slower than most of the games that people think. I like the under in this game, which I still like the running backs, but I do like the under. I think both these teams are going to try and run the ball. And based on how poor the defenses have defended the run, you should have some pretty good opportunities for all three of the running backs in play here. But mostly that's going to be all my interest here.
So I think we're going to continue with me being the person who, insults everybody's intelligence and explains stuff that maybe you think everybody knows. So when Bobby says kind of dean it up or something like that, basically what that means is that just spreading out, like playing like 100 different guys, just grabbing like 5-10% of them without really taking a stand, but just having kind of a sprinkle in reference to Dean, whatever his name was from Roto Grinders, who used to be kind of famous for doing that.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I tend to have.
That's cool. I like it that it's totally part of your, the way you talk. You know what I mean? So I figured I would just translate for them.
I appreciate it because I was actually the first person to actually come up with that, and now they use it all the time. So I was, I'll take it.
Nice.
The same thing with JSU Rab. It's J Surab, but it's JSU Rab, and everybody calls him JSU Rab because his first shows he did were with me. So I just kind of thought that was kind of
cool. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but when somebody uses your name as a verb, it's sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. So.
Definitely go either way. All right, you ready to move over to another really interesting one, Indy and Houston?
Yep. Okay, so Indy and Houston. So when the salaries first came out, I wouldn't even say when the salaries first came out. When Will Fuller announced that he was in violation of PED, basically out for the year. My first instinct was, okay, it's Kiki Cutie kind of chalk week, right? That was going to be that's my initial take. And what's happened? I mean, it looks as though all of the ownership just went to Cooks. Mm-hmm. And Brandon Cooks for me is not the type of guy I want to play as chalk. That's just my opinion. Guy that run vertical routes like that. I don't even know if he still does it. At least that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That guy that runs vertical routes, that's not the safe kind of chalk play for me. I still would like to hear the argument of why I shouldn't be playing QT. He's 3,500. He's taking on the second wide receiver role. I guess that Cobb is going to get work too, I suppose. But isn't QT a really good player at 3,500? That's my first kind of question.
I have interest in QT. I don't think we have any Cobb this week either.
Oh, okay.
As of right now, he's not even in the player pool.
Well, even so, even better.
Yeah, which I think everybody.
Injury reserve. You're right. I mean,
and one thing is with QT, you can play QT and in the same lineup play the tight end Akins at 2,900, right. And then you just do whatever you want. And honestly, you don't need to use Watson in that lineup. But there's Watson will be a guy who I will prioritize in the slate. At home, we see the numbers he puts up. I think they're going to score more points than this. I don't care who his receiving core is. He just sort of always keeps them in games enough, and we sort of hope Indy gets out to the lead, and he's the one, bringing it back. I think that I'm going to have just around the field with Cooks. I don't really like doing that. It's just that I like this game so much. But I'll be way over on QT as of where the field currently projects him. There's a lot of cheap wide receivers that I have some mild interest in, but QT is my favorite by far, as it stands right now. And you're going to have a really chalky Cooks and Akins. But I'm probably going to be right near the field on those guys just because I like this game. And what's going to happen is no one's going to play anything on the other side because of the way Indy plays, basically. So I personally, I'm not going to play Duke Johnson. I will probably throw him in. Maybe I'll have him in 10% of my lineups or 5%, but I'm not going to play 25% like he's going to be owned. I'll be probably half the field, I would say, on him. But other than that, I want to be overweight on this game. Trey Burton seems like an obvious place to start from the Indy side of it. And then we have to see the running back situation. But I don't mind taking a shot on either running back in this spot. I don't think Houston's defense is anything special. I think this is a spot where you could get an actual shootout. We've seen Indy playing several of them in a row when they played tough opponents. Not that Houston's that good. Just in Houston, I think this game should be close. And we've seen that Indy defense really crumble a little bit after their schedule didn't stop being so soft. So yeah. Michael Pittman is probably the guy who I'm looking at the most. But I'm just going to throw it back out there. I played him last week, and I know that, maybe you could say he got me lucky because he got the touchdown late or whatever. I think T.Y. Hilton is becoming more and more involved in this offense again. So I don't mind taking a shot on him because I'm stacking this game some ways at 4.3. Not going to play Rivers, but I will play a lot of Watson and his two of his receivers, and I'll run it back with some T.Y., some Pittman, some Burton. I like being overweight on this game.
I have a question. Without looking at projections, just instinctively, who would you rather have? No upside, let's say cash game or season long or whatever it is. One game, would you rather have T.Y. Hilton in this game or Marvin Jones? Or is it closer?
It depends. I mean, we're assuming Galladay is going to play, I think.
Yeah.
I personally think, given the matchup, and it's hard. I'm so stuck on the matchup thing. But if I just had to take it in a vacuum, I would expect Marvin Jones to probably outscore him on average.
So I'm in this that I told you. For those of you who follow, I'm in this season-long league that Crane put together, which I don't even know the rules. Like I've bid, I thought the right amounts on stuff and whatever it is, and believe it or not, I have clinched a playoff spot. Going into the last week of the regular season, I thought I was going to need to really make that decision because I have that decision to make between Marvin Jones and T.Y. Hilton as like my last guy in, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't really matter too much. I'll make the playoffs.
I think Jones is the answer for that type of thing.
Okay.
Just because we've seen them run out so many different receivers out there. You're going to get some Pascal touches. I'd like to be overweight on these guys, but these guys are going to be 1% owned. So for DFS, I like them. And they're in a great game environment. I think this game should actually be. I like the over in this game.
Okay,
in case you can't tell, but yeah, I mean, I really think you're getting some real value on the Indy side of this because everyone's going to load up on Houston. I just don't see them playing much Indy. With respect to the quarterback position, when you mentioned Watson, I am not going to be having him in my 2+2 cashy type of lineup. Just because I'm going to be spending down a little bit. I do like him a lot. Mm-hmm.
And if I could afford it, I would definitely like him. One thing I would mention though is that I don't know what the injury situation is, but Indy was missing a whole bunch of their defensive line last week. I don't know if they're all back. They were missing was it Booker, I think, also was supposed to be a good run stopper also, who one of the reasons why I was afraid that Derrick Henry was going to go off last week. So I don't know if all those guys are back. So
most of them I don't believe are. I don't have that officially like in front of me,
okay.
But because I think that's even part of the love for Duke Johnson in this game, which is I'm having trouble.
You know what? F Duke Johnson.
I don't need to play him at this ownership level, but again, I'm having some stacks, so he might end up in like 5% of my lineups or something. But like, I just don't want to play him.
Okay.
Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready to move on. All right. So here's the deal. So on the Vegas side of this game, Josh Jacobs, presuming he's playing, I guess, rates to be a good play. I mean, they're an 8-point favorite, right? And he's lead running back, and that obviously rates to be a decent play. And Darren Waller, as usual, rates to be a good play on the Vegas side. So I have interest in the Jets side of this. On the receivers, I like Denzel Mims at 4,100. I like Brett Perryman at 3,900. And I like Jamison Crowder at 5,100. I know that what's his name is no barn burner, Darnold, but it's not like Vegas has been able to stop anybody either. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of into that. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to a full stack of it, but if I did, right? If I did like Darnold with Perryman and what's his face and Mims and run it back with Waller, that's a lot of money I could spend some other places. I'll just say that. But what I might do, like we talk about, is who needs the quarterback? I'll just play one receiver from each side or something, and just kind of get my exposure that way. But just from a pure projection, just upside, whatever. I do like both those guys, all three of them really. Perryman, Crowder, and Mims and Waller from the Raiders.
Yeah, we got to assume that the Jets are going to be chucking the ball some. It's hard with these Jets, Jag situation, because you really wonder what the motivation is to try and win when you've got a pretty sure number one pick, up for grabs. So it always worries me. But they get down enough that they're going to lose anyway. So I think they can still, you could still get something out of their receivers. I sort of had a little bit of interest in all those guys too. I have, I think as of right now, I have sort of Mims and Crowder. I have them all pretty close to the same. I don't know where I know I'll be ahead of the field on them. I just don't know how high I'm going to go. And there's not one that particularly stands out to me. If there was, I might just take the shot with Crowder because I know he's been really quiet. The ownership's going to be really low. And, if you could got Jamison Crowder at 5.1K, a few weeks ago, everybody would have jumped at it. And it's sort of just gone the other way. I am going to make a call here. Like, I'm just going to keep reminding everybody that pretty much every week you see some sort of version of some receiver or something against the Jets defense that somehow is in the optimal lineup. And Darren Waller makes a lot of sense in this. I'm going to be lower than the field on Josh Jacobs. I want to attack them with the passing game. And it's not that I think Jacobs is a bad play. I just need to differentiate some other places. And I'm going to call my shot here a little bit. This is the Henry Ruggs breakout game, in my opinion. No one's going to play him. You don't need to get a ton of them just to have exposure. You can play 10% of them. You'll be more than 10 times the field. This guy hasn't had that breakout game. And if there was one matchup that he could absolutely torch some people, this is it. They're trying to get him more involved. You can see they even give him like a carry every game now.
Yep.
And I think you're gonna see a potentially big game from him here. Don't be surprised if he catches 2, 40-yarders or something like that. I really think that it's coming at some point with this kid. And the projection systems hate him this week. I love him. So I'm gonna I have him right now at 20%, and I might get him a little bit off that, but I want to go heavy when I get the feeling. And look, some of it's just a feeling. And I've been waiting for a spot to sort of get him. I think this is the spot where we take him.
I like it.
Yeah. All right.
So who would have thought that at the beginning of the year that New Orleans and Atlanta would be like the 11th highest total on the slate, right? It's a little nuts, right? So first of all, is who's playing? You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, is Julio playing? I mean, if Julio's playing at 6,600, I kind of have to play him.
I don't think he's playing.
Oh, you think so?
I think he's out.
Let me see. He was limited. Everybody's freaking limited.
We've got him out of the player pool, right? Or I've got him out of the player pool in a couple different sites, but I don't know that'll stick. So if Julio does play, obviously that changes things a little bit.
Yeah, so you just gotta kind of watch for that. But nobody from this game is honestly a priority for me. I'm not playing Taysom Hill. I'm just not going to do it. It's fine. I mean, it's you play catch, you can play him. I'd rather not though.
I don't think it's fine.
Very good.
I think he's a bad play this week. I think he's a terrible player with a really, really good defense who happens to. He's a poor man's Tim Tebow, a really poor man's Tim Tebow, in my opinion, which is saying a lot, but is on a much better team. Well, actually, Tebow had a pretty good team as well. But I think that, I still think that, it feels really thin to play the passing game here on the New Orleans side. Michael Thomas had a pretty good game in the same exact spot with Hill at quarterback. They've both been there. He had 12 targets and nine receptions for 104 yards the last 10 these teams played a couple weeks ago. And I wouldn't mind taking a shot on Thomas or a shot on Ridley in this game. But mostly my interest is only going to be – I'm going to be way over the field on Alvin Kamara. I know he hasn't had big games lately. I know with Taysom Hill you could worry that Hill will be the one running it, and I can understand all the logic, and the carries are down, and the targets are down, and et
They
cetera.
just don't throw him the ball.
They haven't been doing it. They don't throw the ball enough. But even just as a pure runner against Atlanta at 7K,
Right.
you're talking about, I mean, literally just flip it back a few weeks, even if
Yep.
it's whatever. Like this guy would have been 50, 60% owned at this price. And
Yep.
I mean, let's not let recency bias totally throw us off. And while there is some merit to all this stuff, if he was 9K or something, I wouldn't even be talking about it. But you're talking about him below Josh Jacobs at less ownership than all these. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to get heavy on Kamara and just bet on the long-term success of Kamara. That's basically it.
Okay. And again, obviously, if Julio is out, then all those dudes get upgrades. Like
Right.
Do you have any preference, for example, between Zacharias and Gage?
I think I would go with Zacchaeus. For some reason, Gage seems to have better games when Julio plays. I can't figure it out, but it always seems to go that way.
Excuse me. Nope. Zacharias is on injured reserve.
Zacchaeus is out. That's right. Zacchaeus is out. So I think you just leave it alone personally.
So then it's Christian Blake season, right?
I guess you could throw in a tiny bit of Gage, but I personally don't find myself quite as interested this week. Maybe I'll come back around to that one. I don't think so though.
Well, let's not glance too much over this. So if Julio is out, would you? I'm still stuck on this.
I have some interest in Ridley, but I don't have a ton, to be honest with you. I don't. The Saints are not a defense that I'm trying to attack anymore. There certainly is upside here, but I just think there's better plays on this slate.
I was thinking of doing 3K Christian Blake, but
there's a potential there, but I like a lot of cheap receivers a lot better than Christian Blake here. And maybe I'm missing something here with Blake. I just, obviously the projections hate him. No one has him accounting for anything at all, and he's never had like more than 4 targets in a game. I can't see myself pulling the trigger there. I think he's got some talent, but not an especially large amount. I don't know. I'm not into it personally, especially because Taysom Hill's going to slow the game down because they're going to be running the ball like that. If I'm going to play, it's really mostly going to be Kamara for me. I don't want to gloss over it. I don't want to pay attention to a spot that I don't want to attack.
So what do you feel about a 30% owned David Montgomery?
I think it's crazy. I think it's actually, I saw the projected ownerships and I just felt like there was like a misprint or something. I understand the Lions are the absolute worst run defense in football. They've been the absolute worst. But what are we talking about here, man? Like, I don't know. I mean, I have some interest in this game, so it would be natural to sort of run him as part of the other side. This guy has had one game, and it's all because of one play that we would like a whole season. Basically, I guess 2 games. He's going to get touches. He doesn't get very far. They're going to know they're going to try and run because they got Trubisky at the helm. Look, if you want to do it, go ahead. Everybody can be my guest. If I fade Montgomery and Johnson mostly, and I've got him in, I'm not going to totally entirely fade him because, again, I'm playing a little bit of a run backs in this game, but I've got him at 10% right now versus I've got a projection of him at 38% ownership, and that just seems crazy to me. So I'm totally fine with just skipping it.
I'm playing him in my cash game lineup.
That makes sense to me.
And I'm probably going to have 0 in my GPPs. I mean, literally. He's just got, I mean, again, if we're talking about, just pure whatever chances of doing anything. I mean, he has had 5 targets in 3 straight games, and he gets the ball double-digit times rushing. And like you said, Detroit is the pits. So, yes, he's a good play, but at 30% ownership, and this is what we talk about,
Mm-hmm.
It's just somebody you just can't play all that. I don't think you could play all that much of in GPPs. Or if you do, like, you better make sure you don't have the pairing with Dalvin Cook. Like at the very most, you could play him maybe with Henry and then do something else, but you just don't play him with Cook and for those of you that think, well, if I just play Cook and Montgomery, then I'll just get different in my quarterbacks and wide receivers. I think that's just going to be everybody's going to do that. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like there's one receiving tandem that's going to be ignored really for the Cook Montgomery builds, yeah, good play, but not to win $1 million and not in GPPs as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And it's funny because I actually kind of like the passing game for Chicago here.
Okay. Who's quarterbacking?
Trubisky.
Okay.
They announced Trubisky. I mean, look, the targets are a little skewed because they were playing comeback the whole time against Green Bay. But you have Mooney at 3.4, who I have as one of my preferred spend downs. Like you put him and QT in a lineup, you can do a lot of different things. You know what I mean? Anthony Miller, less interested, but a little bit of interest. I mean, at no ownership at 3.1, just a guy, to consider. And then you could play Allen Robinson, who's going to have some ownership, but we've seen, Trubisky will, zone in on him and just try and beat him, throw it to him a million times. And the Lions just don't have a secondary. They don't have a defense, to be honest. So I sort of like this spot, but the Bears offense sucks, but I'm going to take some shots on these guys. I would hope that one of these days Mooney catches more than half of his passes or they don't overthrow him every time. And he's going to break for a monster game when that does happen. So I'm going to take my shots there. And I love taking a shot here on Galladay if he does play, assuming that he does. I just think 6K for a guy who is a receiver is too cheap for this guy. I know that Chicago's got a good defense. I think he gets overlooked. I don't know how much of him I end up with, but he's a guy who I really like. And, you could play a Galladay Robinson, you could play Galladay Mooney, just to get a little bit exposure to this game. But, in general, I don't want to attack Chicago's defense. I just like this price on Galladay, and I think that I would willing to take some shots there.
Yeah, I remind myself to go back to this. I just came across, I was just looking at my rankings and stuff. Just came across like a receiver that you talked about. Before I forget, I agree with you, man. Michael Thomas it's a really, really good play. I'm just looking at some of these other guys, and I got to remember to do that. All right, anything else in this game? Probably not. Right?
No, I think we're done.
Washington Pitt push forward. All right, so here's the deal. All right, so Jackson, Minnesota. We kind of talked tangentially about Dalvin Cook. Good play, 10-point favorite. I was going to say all the work, but he did get tweaked in the Thanksgiving Day game. He did get hurt a little bit, and they kept him limited. He says, I'm going to be ready to go. Don't be surprised if, in fact, they do have a lead, that they give him a little bit of rest. That's just the way I think about it. But the interesting thing to me, honestly, in this game is the status of the Jacksonville receivers. If that's kind of like ridiculous, but this is where I'm kind of at. Because if both these guys are out again, Conley, whatever. But if Shark is out again, I got bad news for you. I'm playing these guys. Listen, Minnesota is not that good. I just thought I'd let you know that.
Yeah.
And I'm not the one to say that Glenn is not that bad, but all I'm going to say is that you're getting Chenault 3,600. Forget Shark for a minute. I really hope he's out. You're getting Cole at 3,800. And then you get this, I don't know where this guy came from. This guy's awesome. This Colin Johnson guy. He's great. I mean, if he somehow gets the work again because Shark is out, you got like three guys that make up like all of the Jacksonville passing game in probably a game script that they're behind, all under 4K. Now again, I kind of buried the lead here, or if everybody's gonna play Devin Montgomery with Cook. Meanwhile, James Robinson is like the best running back in football. He's like
I think he's
crazy.
the other chalk running back, though.
Oh, you think so?
Massive chalk.
Okay.
I actually think he might end up being the highest owned, but I don't think.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet. I just am looking at the fact that
what's sick about it is Robinson. They played against Pittsburgh. They were down like 100 points, and they still just ran it with him. I mean, they got him the ball every single time. So if he's going to be highly owned, then never mind. But even more to the point, like if he's going to be highly owned, if I can get these cheap receivers, I'm going to try it, man. And then if you really want to get nasty, you could run the Jacksonville receivers back with Cook if you want, or if you really want to be disgusting, you could run the receivers back with a Minnesota receiver instead. Jefferson, I presume, is going to be the chalkiest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that is true. But I have a lot of interest in these Jacksonville receivers, and I hate the fact that it's all dependent on Shark being out. I don't know why Shark has to be out for me to not play the other ones. But just to have those guys all at under 4K, pick up the number 1, 2, and 3 wide receivers. It's a lot of value for a team that's going to be having to throw the ball, I think.
I hear you. I actually agree with that. And I like Glennon a little bit.
Why not? I mean,
You play him with two of these guys, or however you want to do it. But he's 4.8. You could just do whatever you want with the rest of your salary and spend up on the guys you really want. You can
this is what you do. Okay, so you guys want to know how to win $1 million. This is what you do. You play. Just pick two at random. Okay, you do this. You run it back with the Thielen instead.
Yeah.
You fade Cook and you go Henry, and you still got 5,400 per player, where you could just do all kinds of nice stuff. You want here. So check this out. So this is like, you don't have to do this, but let's say you wanted to play Waller, and then I mean, you almost can't even spend your salary if you think about it.
It's true.
But play Crowder over here. I mean, like, there's all kinds of stuff you could do. Not that you have to do that, but there's paths where you could get that done. So that's my thought. I'm watching the injury report. I really want Shark to not be in the game. But even if Shark is in the game, I'm probably going to play some of the Jacksonville, and I am not opposed to playing Glennon at all.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to go, and I this is going to be another game where you really, when Jacksonville plays, you kind of have to be interested in trying to get pieces of that game. They pretty much always are in. The defense is just awful. So yeah, I want pieces of both sides, but I will definitely just say again, these guys are going to be this high owned, and it's a little actually harder for me with James Robinson because I actually feel good about him in this matchup. But I'm going to be well below the field on Dalvin, and I'll be slightly below the field probably on Robinson, and focus more on the passing game here.
Anything between Jefferson and Thielen, or any other comments by Minnesota?
I think that Thielen still leads the league in touchdowns, I believe. Although he didn't play last week, so somebody might have passed him. I don't think he did though. Look, Thielen's going to be about half his owned. I'll take a shot there, but I also like Jefferson. I think they're both going to be reasonably low enough owned where you can play either of them. I think below 15%. So I would probably give a little bit of an edge to Thielen just because he's going to be a little bit lower owned. And people sort of aren't realizing, like, even though Jefferson's great and everything, it's not like Thielen's still having a monster season. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Anyway. All right. You ready for the next one?
Yeah. Brandon Allen is really, really bad. Just thought I would let everybody know that for those who didn't know that already. So I presume that one of the chalkier or cash game quarterbacks out there is going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. I presume.
I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to start.
Oh, you don't think he's going to start?
No.
Oh, you think Tua's back?
I would bet some money that they start Tua.
Oh, well, that's
But I'm not 100% sure, though. I'm just – that's what I have projected right now.
Oh, come down to a game-time decision. Say one game. Well, well, if Fitzpatrick plays, I think that he's a pretty decent cash game play, if you want to know the truth.
What is Fitzpatrick's price?
$6K?
Yeah. I think Tua is a better play, but yeah.
Okay. I just always thought that Fitzpatrick was playing. It's so funny. The other thing is that that Parker looks to be a good play on the Miami side. I guess regardless of who's quarterbacking.
Yeah.
The problem with this game, I mean, honestly, is like I said, is that Cincinnati. I mean, I watched it against the Giants last week. They could generate not a shred of offense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not a shred. Mm-hmm. And not that the Giants are a dumpster fire, but Miami's defensively, but Miami's defense is significantly better than the Giants' defense. And I don't know if Cincinnati is going to be able to put any points up. And I think I don't know if I can play too much of the Miami receivers. I think it's going to be an ugly one. I think it's going to be a 20-3 or something like that. And I don't know if I can do it. I mean, I ran some projections. I thought, Tyler Boyd looks like a lot of value here. But, oh my God, 4,700 and it certainly makes some sense, but it's going to be so hard for him to get the ball. Like the Miami corners are really good. Their defense is really good. I don't know, man. When I originally looked at this, I'm going to play some Miami stuff. Man, I don't know. The other thing about this game is you got to watch the running backs. see who's playing, see who's out, see who's in. Between Ahmed, thinking of putting Gaskin out there again. I'm not sure. I mean, that's probably either one of them is probably a good play, considering again, 11-point favorite, and they're probably not going to need to throw the ball that much later in the game. I don't know. I thought I was going to have more interest in this than I do.
Yeah, I sort of feel the same way. The pricing of the receivers on Cincinnati feels silly, but then you think about how they're going to move the ball, and I really believe that in this Miami defense in general. So, like Miami, the Miami defense is expensive, but I think they're the best defense on the board probably. And I don't know what to do with this game. I feel like anybody I think of, I just want to have 10% of. And when I actually end up hand building, I just don't find myself getting there ever with these guys.
Yeah.
So it's a little tricky. I just can't figure out what I would really want to do. I'm going to fade Gio.
Play the Miami defense and don't worry about the rest of it.
Maybe Gio's a little bit more in play than I'm giving him credit for, just because they'll dump the ball off to him enough. Partially by because he's bad. But I don't know. I think I'm going to have less of this game than I initially thought. AJ Green even at 3.1. You could take a stab there for 5% of your lineups or something.
He could get a touchdown.
Sure. I mean, he's had a couple, even 15, 16 points or whatever. There's a few options that are cheap. Maybe Jakeem Grant is another one, 3.5. And Higgins and Boyd are crazy cheap, and I like Parker in general, but I just can't see having too much priority of this game on this slate. I think there's a lot of better games.
So, all right, you want to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Giants Seattle. Colt McCoy is really bad also. Thought I'd let you know that. He's actually, I got to watch both those games. I think he's better than Brandon Allen, but I still think that Colt McCoy is really bad. I think it's obviously a very, very tough spot for the Giants. I'm not going to play McCoy. And I thought about it. I thought about throwing in some Shepard or something like that, but I just would much rather just play other guys than rely on Colt McCoy getting these guys the ball. I just, that's the way I feel about it. I also am not particularly interested in, I don't know, maybe this is a mistake. I'm not super interested in playing the Seattle receivers either. I just feel it's going to be a kind of an ugly game. I think I'm going to take Seattle at their word that they're going to run the ball and, just kind of grind out a win here. I don't think they need to do all that much. And I think, Seattle's got 2 straight games in a row against, actually 3 straight against, really, really easy competition. Like they're playing first they're playing the Giants. I think next week they're playing the Jets, both at home,
Right.
So, I think that they're going to come up kind of flat in at least one of them. But in either case, I don't really have as much interest in this game as I don't know if anybody has interest in this game, honestly, but I don't even think I want to play the Seattle defense. I guess maybe I would do that. But again, I just don't have too much in this game. I'm looking at this, I see Tyler Lockett is like 15%. I'm really going to play Tyler Lockett at 7,400 to 15% in that game script when I can play Michael Thomas at 7K. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to do it.
No, I hear you. Yeah, I'll definitely be below the field on Lockett. I'll of course be over the field on Metcalf because I just don't have another. I don't care. I'm just going to play this guy 20% the rest of the season. The ceiling's too high. His talent level is just so far beyond anybody else's that it's just they could just throw up jump balls to him and you're pretty safe doing that throughout the game.
I'll tell you, man. We didn't talk too much about football. Well, for the game that was the other day, because when did Metcalf play? Monday?
Yeah, don't remind me, man. I almost took down the big one there.
Oh, I remember that. But the thing is, I watched that game, and I'll tell you, it was really did have 2 of the best in the business going at each other with him and Darius Slay. Now again, look, it's tough for Darius Slay. It's tough for anybody to one-on-one Metcalf. He's so big and so fast.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's pretty instructive to me. Darius Slay really did good a job as you could do. He was keeping him out off the out of bounds. He was doing whatever. He made some decent plays. But Metcalf is such a freaking freak that nobody can really stop him.
Yeah.
So
I have a little different take. I think Darius Slay sucks in general. I really do. I don't think he's a good cornerback. I don't think he has been for about 3 years. And even then, he was more of a gambling cornerback. He was a guy who tried to get picks too often and give up big plays. He tried to get physical with a guy he has no business being physical with. And why they left him on an island as long as they did, I will not understand. I really don't understand it. And I actually think Russ missed a bunch of throws, even balls they completed. He underthrew them twice on plays that would have been long touchdowns. I mean, he could have had just a 50-plus fantasy point game easily. So I'm going to always be ahead of the field on Metcalf. I really like Evan Ingram on the other side as sort of a different play at tight end. I think that, you mentioned McCoy being dad, but we saw that he looks for Ingram, and we always, what do you say, the quarterback's best friend. And here you have a defense that can't guard the pass, especially the tight end position. So I just feel like it's a spot where we can take a shot with Ingram. He had 6 catches for 129 yards last week. If he gets in the end zone, he could be a slate breaker with that.
10 targets, three out of the last games, 3 of the last 4 games.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's interesting. I think Chris Carson's going to be extremely popular. And I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm playing – for some reason, I'm just below the field on every popular running back this week, pretty much. I'll have some of them, but I'm, not going to go crazy with it. I do think there's a chance Carson just completely explodes, but I don't know. They've been even on Monday, they were sort of, platooning him a little bit, and then they went away. They talked about running, and they kind of went away from it at times. He's a good play. Obviously, he makes sense, but at just crazy high ownership, I just think there's other ways you can build. And this is a guy who had 8 carries in a game that they controlled only. So if you want a justification of why to fade him, there's your justification right there.
Okay.
All right. You ready for the Rams and my Rams?
Dude, I'm in, man. I mean, look, the Rams looked, they sleptwalked, honestly, in that last Sunday. I don't know what they were doing, and they woke up finally when Aaron Donald got a strip. Something happened where they got a defensive touchdown, then they retook the lead, and they got their shit together, and then they just lost at the end. But I don't know why I think this, but I think this is I don't want to say a get right spot, because look, Arizona's defense has been better. And they're blitzing a lot, which is really bad for Goff in general. When anybody blitzes him, but I don't know. I think that the Rams have played enough of these kind of boring games where people expect them to score, that maybe this is the time where, I don't know, the total is quote unquote only 48.5. Like if they played this game earlier in the year or last year, this is like a 58-point total. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I gotta have this weird feeling that you're just supposed to, not supposed to, but if you play, honestly, you play Goff or Murray with the shoulder, whatever the hell, with just the normal guys like Woods and Kupp or Hopkins or whatever. Maybe those guys aren't that highly owned this week. I don't know. We'll see. But, it's a close game. It's in the dome. And I don't know. I'm kind of into this.
Yeah, there's a reasonable chance that I might have a Ram receiver on the majority of my lineups.
There you go. Okay.
I'm going to be – I have right now in my script that I'm building, I have 35% Robert Woods, 30% Cooper Kupp, and 15% Josh Reynolds. So that pretty much leaves me as a Rams thing. The odd part is I'm not exactly I don't love the idea of playing Goff. But I'm open to it because he's so cheap. So I know that other people are going to play him. I'm going to play some of them because I love the Rams receivers so much here. And we see what happens when he has this kind of a situation. He can throw it all over the place. I also don't mind on the other end, just these incredibly cheap guys these incredibly low owned receivers for Arizona. I don't mind taking a shot on some of them. I know Hopkins with Ramsey and all that stuff, but he's 7.8. It's not like he's a crazy price. He's a significant discount from Devontae at the top.
Excuse me. If correct me if my information is inaccurate, but wasn't just a few years ago that exactly this matchup produced millions of dollars in winnings for people? Yes. When nobody would play Hopkins against Ramsey, and Hopkins just destroyed him.
It wasn't this game. It wasn't this team, but yes.
No, I know that. It was when he was on Jacksonville on a better team.
Right. You're right. Yes, that is actually exactly right. I had kind of forgotten about that. So, let's, I'm happy to take that shot. This Hopkins is as good a receiver as there is in the league. Let's take some shots there. And I love the LA side so much. I really want to get some exposure to the Arizona side, so I'll do that. I also, I'm not as crazy about Drake. I do like Tyler Higbee, by the way. I'm going to have to play a little bit of Jared Goff because I like Higbee as well. He's my cheap tight end this week along with Akins. And I mean, I can't figure out exactly whether I think maybe the answer might be a little bit of Christian Kirk and a little bit of Hopkins. You could play 10%, you'll still be well ahead of the field. So I think that's probably just the way I'm going to go.
Okay. All right. So interestingly, get to this next game, and I don't like to give out picks, right? I don't like to give out best plays. I don't like to do whatever. It's all function of whatever. But just to give you an idea of just how my process works or whatever, like in 2 of the next games are like 2 of my favorite just overall plays on the slate. Just given everything, given everything that we've talked about at running back, if this ownership is like even remotely close, I mean, I will take all of the Aaron Jones that people want to give me. I mean, if you want to know the truth, I mean, they're playing Philly. They're a 100-point favorite, whatever it is. And you have James Robinson, $100 higher, who you're telling me is going to take up all this ownership. You could just give it all to me, honestly. This is one of my favorite, I mean, maybe my favorite running back play on the slate, if you want to know the truth. So that's that. And Devontae Adams is awesome. He's great. If you can afford him, terrific. I actually made a cash lineup which got him in. Then I just kind of changed it. Certainly looks really good, and I'm sure that Jones can get it to him whenever he feels like it. Rodgers can get it to him whenever he feels like it. Yeah. But I don't know. For me, it's Jones paired with Green Bay defense. Whichever Philly quarterback they throw out there is not going to do anything. And that's where I'm at.
Okay, so who do we think starts for Philly at quarterback?
Wentz.
We're gonna start Wentz again. Okay, that's what I thought. Just ridiculousness, in my opinion. Absolutely, I've never seen anybody get as coddled and everything, and it's just disgusting to me, honestly. I don't want to get into a whole different line of things, but it's really hard for me to understand how people don't see what is so plainly in front of their eyes. And that is very simple. Carson Wentz is a terrible quarterback. He's arguably been the worst quarterback in football this year. And somehow, I mean, the worst guys who started on opening day. I just have no idea what the hell they're thinking with him. Like, he is terrible. And you saw, if he can't move the ball against Seattle, he was the first guy who hasn't been able to move the ball against Seattle. That team gets torched by everybody. I don't know. It's beyond – it's disgusting to me. I hate it. I do think we have to consider both of the tight ends for Philly. You're going to get no ownership on Goddard, as if Ertz being back is going to somehow take him out of the role. Like, they look for him when he put up huge games when Ertz was there. So you don't need Ertz to be out for him to have a big game. I also like Ertz at 3.9. So I think all the tight ends in this game are interesting to me. That's probably most of my interest. I do love playing the Devontae at lower ownership. I think he's going to get almost none this week. So really? he's a really good play. But I love your call on Aaron Jones. I think that's a really good way to go. And on the other side, I love Miles Sanders here, actually. Green Bay's had trouble with the run all year. If somehow Philly could just have a different quarterback or keep the game close, and maybe they can keep the game close enough to where Sanders can really do his thing. I know I'm a little bit of a Sanders truther. I'm always trying to talk about playing him. I know he had a tear. He's coming off a few, pretty subpar games. But I think he's interesting this week. I've heard other people talk him up, and we've seen Green Bay get torched by a number of running backs. So I will take some shots with Miles Sanders, but I do love the Aaron Jones call.
Anything else in this game?
I don't think so.
So if you didn't like any of all of that, if having one, if having Aaron Jones at 7,200 to pivot off of James Robinson wasn't good enough, and if Derrick Henry to pivot off of whatchamacallit, and Derrick Henry wasn't enough to pivot off of Dalvin Cook, then you could also play Austin Eckler at 7,100. Look, they were almost afraid that he was like, well, he comes back. Is he going to get the work? I mean, 16 targets for real? I mean,
they told us he wasn't going to literally talk me off of him. Everybody's saying, well, we've already heard from the team that, they're only going to play him in a limited role, maybe even 30 or 40% of the snaps. What the hell?
I mean, so honestly, these 3 plays, like Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, and Austin Eckler, with off of the Cook, Montgomery, Robinson chalk train, I am going to be at peace when at 1:00 when these games go off.
I'm totally with you, man. I'll be at peace as long as the other guys don't put up 50s. But
You don't have to play all three. You know what I mean? But these
yeah.
are three guys. I mean, these are legit pivots off of. Well, I don't want to say good chalk or bad chalk, off of chalk. You know,
Right.
and I like Austin Eckler a lot. I was not as into much else. All these guys, I guess, are going to be good. I guess Keenan Allen's always good, and Mike Williams is always good. But for whatever reason, I got really into the Austin Eckler piece of this game. And New England side, I mean, you want to try to kill Harry again? Only 3K. Eeks. Oh man, I might have to try a little of that. Bird 3,900. These guys all remain really cheap. I would love for N'Keal Harry to actually do something. A couple of games ago, yeah, 2 targets in the last game. Yeah,
They're even trying to. They even try and like run him like on certain play. Like it just nothing ever seems to. He never seems to get there.
I think I said this last week as well. I think the Chargers put a beating on them. Actually, I think that they're two teams going in opposite directions.
Wait a minute. They're going opposite directions. The Chargers are the ones going in the wrong direction. They can't.
No, I think they're doing fine. Well, they're losing, but I think they're just, you know what I mean? But I think that they're, as far as like their development goes, I think Harvard's getting better. I think whatever it is, and New England, they're all getting worse, you know. So I don't know. I kind of like the Chargers this week over New England, and I like Eckler, and I would actually play some LAC defense too.
Well, we are on completely different sides of this game, which is
perfect. All right. Let's go. All right.
Here's our dollar bet. I think New England wins this game.
We're in for $1, and
I love Herbert in general, but I think this is the first time we really see him struggle. That's my really struggle. I guess maybe not the first time.
But you know what's also really good?
What's that?
Like if you get Belichick and they try to take Keenan Allen away, it's Austin Eckler season.
Yeah, I know. Well, or does he? Yeah, I guess that's what he would try and do. Right. I actually think that he's going to try and I think he's going to try and beg them to run the ball. Because that passing game is tough. And I'm not interested in too much from this game. I do like Eckler, but I really want to take shots on Bird and Harry. I know it feels gross, but actually with Bird, it doesn't even feel that gross to me. Like I've seen the ceiling, I can see him get there, and they just fit sort of in nicely with these other cheap receivers that I've talked about. I definitely prefer the other guys a little bit, but I could see Bird, by the end of the week being in 15% of my lineups. I like him against this Chargers defense. I think the Chargers have shown that they will give up big plays, and he's their big play guy. It's basically that simple. Jacoby Myers is a little bit more expensive and more highly owned than I would want. I guess it's like a combination of those two things. But I'm not too interested in either side of this. I do think that just as a straight game, I like New England to win this game. That's basically my take. Do you want to run through position by positions, or not position, but like maybe favorite plays or favorite stacks?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just put in this win the million lineup.
As I talk about how I don't like something, she just like loads up on the game.
Right. Okay. So all right. So my favorite, again, I feel as though the key to the slate is the running back position. I really do, and I think that while all those plays you could justify, and I might end up playing Cook and Montgomery together in the cash game. I might just do that. It's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I might play James Robinson, but I think that for GPPs, I think there are very legitimate options to pivot off of them. And we went over it all. We went over them. With respect to stacks or whatever, I think the easy stack, and we want to know the truth that we talked about, is the Rams. I mean, I know where those targets are going. Pretty much, right? We got 40% of them to Cook, to Cup, 40% of them to Woods, and 20% of them to Reynolds, give or take. You know what I mean? Higbee too. So maybe 10% Higbee, 10%, whatever. So that's fine. And there'll be a lot of plays run, and Rams run no huddle. Also, there'll be a lot of plays run. So I think that's the easiest one. And then some of the mad scientist ones, like the Jets, or Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm with that. The Jacksonville, Minnesota, and I think the Indy Houston game is really interesting. Also, it's harder to find the guys on Indy, but it also
Okay.
means they're going to be extremely low on. So that's the way I would go.
Well, what about Pittman? We never talked about him. You like him?
Yeah, I like, as I mentioned Pittman earlier. I like him a
Okay.
lot. But the problem is you've got Pascal now back. You've got Ty who got more involved last week. So it's just hard to decide exactly. And with a guy like Rivers, and it's funny because he would focus in on Keenan Allen, but he goes through these weird phases where he goes through, like, he'll only throw the ball to like somebody, and then other games he'll throw it to like 19 different receivers. It's strange. It's anyway. I don't have a great feel for what he's going to end up doing. And usually with Rivers, that means that Naheem Hines is the answer. But I just like that game anyway. In terms of individual ownership, my highest owned running backs are not going to be that high owned. So I love that. Kamara, Derrick Henry, and Aaron Jones. As of right now.
Okay. Yeah, Kamara, I got to remember that one.
I think we can get way off the board, and then you mix it in with the Dalvin Cooks and the Carson and maybe a little Montgomery. I'm not going to go or Robinson, but I'll throw Miles Sanders in the mix. I'll throw Kareem Hunt in the mix, and Austin Eckler in the mix. But mostly, I really like getting different with guys who you don't think would be getting that different with is Kamara, Henry, and Jones.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not like you're pivoting to some trash can. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's not like you're pivoting to, say, some guy who's in an impossible matchup that you're just hoping overcomes it. It's not like you're pivoting to someone against the Steelers or whatever it is. Like, these guys are all legit, and they're in legit spots. I mean, I'm not too particularly afraid of any of the defenses that I'm going up against, if you want to know the truth. So it's I think that's where I'm at. But again, it's weird. It's every week we think that we have this down, that we know who's playing, and then seriously, as soon as you hit stop recording, we get the freaking thing on our. I don't know who's going to be out. It's going to be somebody, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who it's going to be, but so fortunately or unfortunately, it's gonna be Sunday morning that I really finalize all this stuff in my head. But I think that my overall approach to this is gonna be based on those running back pivots that I discussed.
Yeah, I totally agree with a lot of that. I just wanted to real quick read through just my other ownerships for the wide receivers. I'm gonna play that my highest owned player will be Robert Woods, followed by Cooper Kupp. Kiki Cutie, Brandon Cooks, even though I'd probably still be below the field on Cooks, but he's going to be up there for me in terms of ownership. I like Adams. I like that. I'm looking at my top 10 receivers that I've got, written in my script, and 7 of them are not even projected to be double-digit owned, including guys like Ruggs and Hilton, who are not even projected to have 1% owned. And I like Crowder. I like Mooney, QT. Those are my guys. And I think I feel pretty good about this week just because what I like does not match up with the chalk, and I'm okay with fading. I don't feel that nervous with the chalk that I'm fading. I really don't.
You know what I like to do sometimes? So I guess if anybody's listening and they subscribe to one of the sites that have the optimizers and stuff like that, what I like to do, and I don't do it as much, but maybe I'll do it a little bit this week. Let's say you like 3 big pivots like that. Let's just say that it's the 3 I mentioned, like Jones, Eckler, and Henry. Mm-hmm. What I'll do is have some fun. Like, let's say I want to make 30 lineups. I'll plug in 10 lineups. I say make me 10 lineups with all 3. Mm-hmm. Then make me 10. Then I'll make 10 lineups with 2 of the 3, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'll make 10 lineups with 1, and just kind of see where it kind of spreads out. And that's kind of like a fun way to have your opinions and your takes kind of thrown into the mix, and also at the same time letting the projections also kind of fill in the rest. So that I might actually do a little of that this week, because I definitely do want to have a couple lines with all 3, some with 2, some with 1. I don't think I'm going to have any GPP lineups with, for example, with Cook, Montgomery, and Robinson, for example. And I kind of like some of these, like, I don't know. Hopefully I get this cheap values and the wide receivers get there for me. I don't know. I think it's going to be a fun week. I
agree. And I'm just going to real quick, we never talk about it because defenses are whatever. Yeah, but I just will quickly say my favorite defenses are the Patriots on the cheap end, the Patriots, the Lions on the cheap end, and then I like the Chargers also. Actually, I got 2.6. And then on the expensive end, I really think if I'm going to spend all the way up, I'm going to have to play. I'm probably not going to play as much Minnesota and Seattle, even though I like them fine. I think I'm going to go all the way up to Miami if I do spend up.
Yeah. So the cheaper one, this is going to be pretty chalky, would be the Bears.
Yeah.
But it's really spread out for me. I would say that that if you want to pay up for the Dolphins, that's fine. I think I'm going to need the salary elsewhere, though. If I was going to pay up, I think I'd prefer the Packers maybe and save the 600. I don't know. And I agree with you. I agree with you about Detroit, by the way, and New England. I like New England's defense, actually.
Yeah. All right, man. I think we did it. We knocked out most of the stuff. I think we're most done. Do you have anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah. So who gets ruled out when we hang up? Is it Devontae Adams?
It's going to be Aaron Jones after we just talked him up.
No, that's too direct. It's going to be something more where it leads me to a guy we haven't even discussed today. It's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be like Derrick Henry out or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a double shot or some, or it's going to be Nick Chubb ruled out, making Hunt huge chalk.
5,000% owned. Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. All right, guys. Hey, this was good. Hopefully, if we helped you. If you have any questions or thoughts, please hit us up on Twitter or on the channel here. And for Sheets, I'm Bobby saying we'll see you at the top of the leaderboard. Somebody win $1 million this week.
Yep.